Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Zombie Train. This is episode number 317, and this week we have a question from Stephen Binkley on episode 250, and it says, did you do anything with the A4 Pacifics in Green Bay and Montreal? This is really an interesting question, I responded to it, actually, but I responded to it incorrectly, because I was thinking of the wrong engines. The A4s, he means, I should clarify, he means the L&ER A4s, the Gresley A4s, the British ones. So, you will understand why I was mightily confused when I answered his question. Yes, and they were disappointing. They weren't available. They weren't here. They weren't on the continent. So, my reply that I wrote a year ago was completely mistaken. And I had confused them for a different locomotive, or a different class. Just what? I don't know, you'd have to ask me from a year ago. In 2012, all of the A4s went to a meetup in England at, I think, the National Railway Museum in York. I think I'm getting that right. It was a museum in York. I'm not sure if it's whatever. All of the A4s were in attendance, including the Dwight D. Eisenhower and the Dominion of Canada. So, not only did we not use the A4s, which I wouldn't have been overly enthused because they are so very different than American locomotives. Not to say that American locomotives are standardized in any way, shape, or form, because they really aren't. But a Pacific wasn't good enough for us in a lot of cases. They were nice, but they didn't do everything. They didn't do a whole lot compared to a lot of other locomotives, like, Mikado's, our mainstay. So, we did go looking for the A4s, and I was like, well, they should be fairly easy to get into operation, because British locomotives, I don't know why I actually thought that British locomotives were just easier to run. I'm not sure if I was wrong in that. I'm not sure if I was right. I will never know, because we were like, they should be here. I do remember checking, the one in what was it, DC? It was in the Smithsonian, right? No, it was in Green Bay. That's right. It was in Wisconsin. It took us a while to get to it then. No, okay, that's right. Now I'm understanding. Now I am remembering. Because I remember there was one that was farther away, and there was one that was closer, or supposed to be. The one that was closer was, of course, in Toronto. We had allies, friends in Toronto. We went there to look for engines, and I was like, shouldn't there be another one? There should be a Pacific. And nobody really had an answer for me. I wasn't overly concerned about the fact that it wasn't there. I kind of thought that someone had made off with it, but, if you guys knew the state of the museum in Toronto way back when, you'd know how difficult that was. And we sort of just brushed it off as like, well, it's not here. It must be some sort of clerical error. I don't know. I didn't understand why an A4 would be in the U.S. anyway. Why a mallard, as I probably would have called it back then. Because, of course, there's only one. There's the famous A4, blah, 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 had the speed record. Anyway. The one in Green Bay, when we got there, I still didn't put it together, because I'd totally forgotten about the Toronto thing. It was just like, shouldn't there be another... It was almost the exact same response. Shouldn't there be another engine here? Shouldn't there be an A4 Pacific here? And I didn't think back to... Well, there was also not the one in Toronto. I learned, fairly recently as a matter of fact, that they were all in the UK. They were all overseas at that point in time. And in fact, the Dwight D. Eisenhower... No, the Dominion of Canada was getting a pretty hefty restoration, as I understand, or it was supposed to receive one. I haven't been over there to see it, believe it or not. Part of the outcome or the fallout from the tensions that developed between us and the people that were controlling the waters around England, for lack of a better way to put it, means that I really am not enticed to go to the British Isles anytime soon. Even though we're, not exactly at odds anymore. It's been a while. It really does make me wonder what ended up happening to them. We did a number on them for sure. We might have cost them at least one of their ships. Yeah, we definitely did, because that thing burned to the waterline. Unless they saved the hulk of it, but we were out in the Atlantic, so I don't think there was any way they were getting it back to shore. That was not the Trincomalee, the other one, the Unicorn? Yeah, it was another ship that we tangoed with. We had a 3v3, basically, the Warrior and the two Trincomalees, basically. I don't know what the other one was. Versus the Constitution, which of course could take on probably both of the Trinks single-handedly, if it got a good wind. And the John W. Brown, I think it was one of the two Liberty ships, and the Olympia, which was our flagship at the time, which of course could rip all three of them to shreds, but wasn't the best fighting unit because of the state she was before World War Z. Ow, sorry. I actually have a write-up of that engagement. We did almost lose the Olympia. She took a number of pretty severe hits, a couple below the waterline, and it flooded the engine room, and we were sort of drifting. We ended up having to get towed back to the States by the Liberty ship, by the John W. Brown. The Constitution wasn't much for towing anybody. But, yeah, the Warrior, from what I understand, I've mentioned this before, but the Warrior, they disassembled a bunch of engines. I don't know if any of them were A4s, to get boilers to run the HMS Warrior, which the Warrior had when she was a museum ship before the war. Fake guns, fake engines, fake boilers, fake everything, basically. And so they must have rebuilt that ship pretty much from the hull up in order to get it in fighting condition. And I could tell because the cannons on the Warrior were really doing a number on Olympia. On a normal day, if you had taken both of those ships at their prime and pointed them at one another, the Olympia would have been able to rip the Warrior to shreds, of course, with much more modern weaponry and thicker armor, and the Warrior would have been able to look angrily at the Olympia. That's really about it. The shells, I mean, they would have done a number on the superstructure if they were able to hit it, but they wouldn't have been able to get through the ship's armor. The Olympia is a fairly tough ship. And it was the toughest we had at that point in time. Not by number of guns, but certainly by thickness of armor, and being one of the only steamships that we had, and I think the only steam-powered warship, steam-powered gunned ship. You can't really... I mean, the John W. Brown had a couple of guns on it. Like one 4-inch gun, I think, and one 3-inch gun, and then a couple of AA guns. But those, they were a little hit or miss in terms of functioning, if I recall. We tried to use them on, like, gunnery trials and just didn't have a great time with it. Also getting ammunition for them was a pain in the neck. We were able to put together some makeshift ammunition for Olympia because we knew it would be important, and of course the Constitution, you just have round balls and gunpowder. And also, that really makes me think for a second just how many cannonballs must be at the bottom of the ocean, right? Anyway, that was an epic battle. I feel like I bring it up every time I talk about Great Britain in general. They were called the Britons, is the people that we fought. Just now that I'm remembering that. And the reason I bring it up every time is because it's really the high point of our conflict. They tried to corner us in the Mediterranean. They, before that, had raided Boston, D.C., and a number of other ports up and down the East Coast with the Trincomalee, which was their only ship for a while. And, oh goodness, what else? I can't remember. I don't think I had a hand in anything else, but I know that the Seafarers, which were a group out of D.C., or the D.C. area, they tangoed with them from time to time, because, well, it was... Well, they were the ones out there. It was them and the Islanders. The Islanders had, like, the northern Atlantic seaboard, and the Seafarers had the southern Atlantic seaboard, until you got down far enough where it was Hurricane Central and nobody went down there. Of course, alluding to last episode when I talked about Firefall, if it was the last episode. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Certainly I can't say much about the A4s, much else about the A4s. There were a couple of European engines in the States that we did use, and they were sort of engines of last resort because I knew they would be honestly kind of anemic compared to... I mean British specifically. Kind of anemic compared to American engines of a similar wheel arrangement or even a similar size. And I don't know. It was just... Yeah, I don't know what else I was thinking of. You know what I want to know? I want to know if there was another A4 class in the United States, like a U.S. set of steam engines. I can probably look that up. You know what? I'm just going to take the bottom third of the show to look something up real quick, and we'll see. So, I have my big spreadsheet full of all of the locomotives that we used during the Zombie Train Incorporated, at least all the steam engines that we used. And, let's see, A4. This is probably... It might also include some of the engines I thought we could use. I don't really remember if I was in my right mind when I was making the spreadsheet. It's been quite a while. Were there really none others? Was there an A1 class, an A2 class, an A3 class, an A4? A4B. Oh, ha ha ha, it's kind of funny. You know what? Was that what I was thinking of? The A4, or the A4B, is the class of the 040 Camelback that used to reside at the Strasburg Railroad, the ex-Reading Camelback 1187. That might have been what I was thinking of, which explains why I said it was disappointing, because frankly, I don't like Camelbacks, first of all. Second of all, the fact that anything with a Wooten firebox and that much grade area really kind of demanded anthracite coal. I mean, you could put whatever in them, but the fact that they really kind of demanded anthracite coal made them the picky engines of the Zombie Train Incorporated. Aside from, of course, diesels and oil burners, which, once we converted oil burners out, there were problems with steaming, as you might expect. There just wasn't a great area there. Oil has it burns more intensely than bituminous coal. So, I'm sure that surprises nobody. But, yeah, there were definitely problems with steaming across a lot of the formerly oil-burning fleet, but there was also problems with steaming with basically every Wooten firebox engine we had. That's all the anthracite burners. Camelbacks and the Reading T1s, even. And that was really the only downside of the Reading T1s. Otherwise, those were fantastic engines. I'm not going to lie. Also, it should be T-1, but no. Anyway. I'm sorry I don't have a more satisfying answer to that question. They were out of the country. And, I didn't know. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the Admiral, signing off.